Reaction to that from a Navy Reserve officer who served as a special advisor in Afghanistan. Mark Kirk is also a Republican senator from Illinois. Senator, when I heard about the Taliban being part of this process, I guess hope springs eternal, but I am a little leery of that. But again, I'm no military guy. What say you?
I think General Petraeus is right when he categorized the Taliban in two groups. The first is what he would call the $10 Taliban. It's about two-thirds of the Taliban. They're paid in drug money to carry out attacks against NATO and the Afghan government. And they would quickly leave the fight if the right incentives were there. And then there are the die-hard jihadists, about a third of the Taliban. And they will only end when they die in battle, and that's what NATO and the Afghan army should arrange.
We're getting reaction, fast and furious, from all sides of the aisle, Senator. Not surprisingly, Nancy Pelosi saying that she's disappointed with the president's announcement, that she had hoped and had pressed for a better outcome, that we would have seen a full drawdown of U.S. forces would happen sooner than the president laid out. So on the left, I imagine, sir, he's going to encounter criticism from those who say he should have and much more aggressively cut down troops, and those on the right who says he's cutting too much. Does he have the right mix as you see it, or what?
Well, I'm concerned about very credible press reports, which I believe, that General Petraeus and the command was overridden here, and the president sided with Vice President Biden. I went with the president to West Point. I applauded his decision. And I think the critical factor that General Petraeus was relying on is the expansion of the Afghan army and police. They went from nothing to 200,000, but the plan was to go to 400,000, which was the significant weight that would be required to win the Afghan war. I'm concerned that we're leaving far too early. The president's decision tonight was to withdraw about 12% of the combat power right away and about 30% of the combat power by the election. And the Afghan army is only about two-thirds the size that it was planned to be when we withdrew. This is a very early withdrawal that will really stress the Afghan army.
You know, I certainly don't want to make the Vietnam comparison, but sometimes it does strike you as an odd parallel when we express confidence that the country that we're heavily engaged is ready, or soon will be ready, to fend for itself. But you've got a leader in the case of Hamid Karzai who hasn't been exactly stable, or for that matter, supportive of our efforts. In fact, lately he's been quite critical, and there's been a great deal of corruption within his government. Supposedly he leaves in the next couple of years, will not seek a third term to try to find a way around the new Constitution. Be that as it may, he's a wild card. These new forces, drawn to the limits they are a wild card. Are they ready to fend for themselves?
I don't think they were. They are about two-thirds ready. The plan was to bring them up to the size of 400,000 in 2014. We've got two historical analogies that fight for dominance in the American mind. The older generation is very wedded to the Vietnam analogy and the loss in that conflict. But I would say the modern military is very wedded to Desert Storm and the conflict in Iraq. And of course, it was General Petraeus that designed the surge and built the Iraqi army to the 500,000-man force that then, it's politically incorrect to say, but then in 2007 and 2008 won the war. That was the original plan for Afghanistan, a 400,000-man military. But the president has now sided with the vice president to leave early. We're about 100,000 short.
We are involved in a lot of countries. We are lending in this region to a lot of countries, and going to the Middle East, a lot of various groups of whom we know very little.
Right.
I'm wondering if we're simply spread too thin, and part of the president's thinking today, tonight, is he agrees we're spread too thin.
We are spread quite thin, but I would say that there's no real substitute for victory. Here's the problem. In 1991 and 92, President Clinton felt that Afghanistan was a country of no importance. It had no oil and no coastline. And so we ignored the rise of the Taliban and al-Qaeda. and then we suffered the price on September 11th. I think here we can once again ignore Afghanistan, and for a while things will be quiet. But the problem with Afghanistan is if you don't get it right, Afghanistan will soon revisit you again. And having served in Afghanistan, I will tell you that Taliban leadership often talks about toppling the government of Kabul and then resuming jihad against European and American cities.
So the Taliban might be tame, but they're hardly beaten.
No, and I worry that now the Taliban will see that they can rest and refit in 2012, and that will give the president a good election atmosphere on the Afghan side, and then enter the field in 2013 against a much weaker enemy.
We'll watch closely, Senator. Thank you very much. Thank you for all your service as well.